right, so in this week's episode of Seize the Data, we are joined by Rama K. Rama, why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Tina. Thanks for inviting me to this podcast. And as a head of analytics, data and analytics, I have worked with several larger organizations such as Microsoft, Intel, Samsung, and some of the healthcare organizations. My expertise is not limited to any specific industry. I call it as industry agnostic experience, as I have gained knowledge and experience from diverse range of industries. So being a constant learner, I have been able to grab the best opportunities, and currently I'm working with largest privately owned organization to help them with their generative AI transformation strategies. In addition to this, giving it back to the community, I shared my experiences as a coach, mentor to more than 8,000 members through TopMate and the Telegram communities.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's impressive. And Rama, we're so excited to have you here today. I think you're one of the top data leaders we've had on the podcast and show. Would you be able to share more about just those communities? I'm curious to learn a little bit more on how mentoring 8,000 people, like, is there a Rama AI bot out there that you're using to mentor everyone?
So we have this Telegram social media chat tool where I have created leaders group, engineering managers group, data managers group, and also for a more junior level experienced people, I have created system design and other groups where people come and ask a lot of questions. And not only me, this group also has people from Google, Microsoft, Meta, and Amazon, and other groups share their experiences, share their knowledge, basically trying to create good corporate citizens, meaning the incivility in the organizations are growing up a lot, and this community feels responsibility to help growing that civility in the professional working world. And we work a lot in these things, help them preparing for interviews, preparing for their daily challenges, preparing them to how to deal with certain aspects of it. For example, any BI challenges they are facing, any data issues they are facing. So these type of things, practically, those people who walk the path can help them growing up these communities.
Awesome. I love that. I mean, at Datalogz, our mission is really just to bring awareness and build a community around, solving BI challenges. Obviously, our whole thing at Datalogz is solving for BI sprawl. And when we speak with data leaders or when we are onboarding customers, I think one of the main things that's missing is that dialogue. So I think that community element is amazing. So you mentioned you're talking about BI challenges with these folks. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about some of the challenges you've seen in your 20 plus years working in analytics, business intelligence? I mean, you've been at some really large public companies. So I'm really curious to hear, your take on what some of the largest challenges are today. And obviously, these challenges are just going to be proliferated by the inclusion of AI into the picture, especially when it comes to these BI tools, like report creation and all that just becomes so much easier, which is going to just perpetuate sprawl to an extent we can't even begin to fathom. But yeah, before I go on a tangent, I just want to hear from you, like how are you thinking through some of these challenges?
Great question, Dina. The problems of BI and data, there are organizations face different sets of problems, and there is no one Bible of BI that we can look at it and solve the problems. But let's take the top three problems, right? Number one is data being all over the organizations, right? The data silos. That's number one issue. The second thing is 80% of organizations' effort goes into collecting the data and keeping it at one place. A lot of people call it as a single source of truth and
Mhm.
pipelines, data engineering, many other things. But effectively, it all boils down to how can I collect that data? That's number one. Number two. The number three and the last problem is reporting on top of it. What metrics that I need to provide. And by doing that, we will be ending up having thousands and thousands of reports. And even if you have like few reports, each report contains 20, 30 pages of data that we will not be able to make utilizing it effectively. There are
Yeah.
other problems, but these are the top three problems that I can think of.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're spot on. Logan, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Like the first one we come across all the time of siloed data. We
Yeah.
see so many companies where people are most protective of the data asset they own. They're like,
Hmm.
this should not go into our central repository. And then that second challenge you named, the having a single source of truth. There's so many software companies out there to solve it, but I feel like still at most large organizations, it's really a people challenge, and getting people to talk about
Absolutely.
the things the same way
Absolutely.
is very hard. But I guess where I want to drill in and dive a bit deeper is you talked about that thousands of reports, 30 pages each on average. We take that, you now have 30,000 different KPIs being reporting out within an organization. So, from a management and leadership perspective, how did you control that? And then also, why is it an important challenge to solve?
So let's look at why this is an important problem. And the tools like Tableau or any other tools, Cognos or MicroStrategy, all these tools give some kind of easiness to create these reports when you build the teams to gain efficiencies. And when a user or when a business user is asking the question without them looking into the repository or in a urgency to create the report immediately, we tend to create same or similar flavor of the report.
Hmm.
For example, the net revenue of the e-commerce team exists in multiple reports, and there is no one report speaking the truth of it is also another problem. And we will create these with different dimensions, different contexts in multiple places, and we deliver that in an accelerating mode, ending up with thousands of reports. Sometimes the tools that are available may not be helping us to identify those duplicate records and end up having multiple reports at one point. And users at one time think that which one is correct and which
Hmm.
one I need to look at it because they have a different emergency and they don't have time to look at all these things. And our team, BI team, is keep on creating the report. So in my previous organizations, I have the infrastructure team looking at the audit logs of the reports. Like if you're not looking at that report for like let's say 3 weeks, 6 weeks, we send a notification to the users and say that hey, if you're not using this, we're not going to keep this report and we will be moving it to
Right.
a what do you call the a retired box or something like that,
Yeah.
and we will keep it there. After 6 months or 3 months of that no use or nobody requesting that, we will delete the report.
Awesome.
So
I
that's how
love
I
that
started.
that's great. I love how you've implemented that because we speak with people in your position all the time. And so often it's a problem that's, overlooked, or it's gotten to the point where that going back and retroactively doing that, that's way more difficult. And it ends up being a project that takes years versus just
Exactly.
having the process in the first place. So that's amazing. Okay, cool. So is there anything else besides, going through audit logs? Is there anything else you find that you have to do to structure a BI team for success. Like you said, they just want to create reports because everyone has a different need. Especially, we always say this at Datalogz, like when business users get involved and they want to start accessing reports, it's like everyone's need becomes so urgent. It's like, oh, marketing needs a report for this, and operations needs a report for this, or the CEO has a board meeting and he or she needs a report for XYZ. So if how do you prioritize what's important, but also like when it comes to managing the BI team, how do you structure them for success where it doesn't get to this point, you know?
Now that's really what happens when rubber hits the road. That's a nice question, Natina.
Yeah.
So these again, I said there is no one success rule that brings us the success structuring these teams, right? So there is no one size fits all either. Also, right? The most important element is the organization culture. As Peter Drucker said, that culture eats the strategy for breakfast, right? So
Ah,
by considering that, never try to change the organization culture.
okay.
Embracing that, and the most important thing is the cross-functional collaboration. So you make your BI developers not as a technical enablers, make them understand the business, why the supply chain metrics are important to that supply chain manager, why the financing metrics are important to my CFO and my finance
Right.
controllers. And you bring that cross functional collaboration, define the clear roles and responsibilities. And when you are executing this, use agile methodologies. Don't use those waterfall methodologies or anything that will set for failure. And there is a governance that we need to implement as well. And
Yeah.
when somebody is asking a report, make sure the developer knows it, logs it somewhere, and check that logs periodically, and making sure that previous report is used by how many users, how long ago they used it, and continuous training, education, brown bag sessions, all these things creates the structure for your team. And that's how I used to prioritize the report. But sometimes when you're launching a product, or sometimes during the holiday season, you need the report, and
Yeah.
without going back and forth, just create the report, and then we will deal with those duplicates later.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
Right.
Great answer. And I think oh, sorry to cut you off, Logan. I was just going to say, especially at larger organizations, it's like everyone wants to move towards self-service analytics. But without those guardrails in place, and you've touched on a few of those, without those guardrails, that is just not possible. That democratization of data is just not possible without the guardrails and barriers in place, or you get to the point where you get BI sprawl.
That's right.
So anyway, yeah, I'll give it over to you, Logan.
Yeah, and I agree. What we find also is like once executives or business analysts get a taste of like really good data and insights, they just want more and more. It's almost like they're hungry for more data,
Yeah.
which is a great thing to create that culture around. Let's use data to drive better decisions. But then what we see in a lot of companies is as people get their hands on more data, there's a natural need for more reports, more dashboards that involves kind of upskilling the org. So I'm curious how you've built cultures in the past and kind of handled that training and learning of getting more data users at a company interested in insights.
And that's a very important question that you asked, Logan. If you create a BI developers community or a BI teams as core responsibility is to create the reports and give it to the business team and say, you figure it out. That's not the culture I recommend to create it. The data driven culture, of course, the top down approach is one part of it. The bottom up approach is make your BI developers working with the stakeholders and drive the business review meetings. let's say weekly business reviews or monthly review business. Hey, your orders are stuck in this state for the last 48 hours. Is there something that we would like to know? What happened? Is the inventory is not there? Why are we seeing back order items? Is it a front end issue or a back end issue? Or if you approach this one, this should have cleared 90% of your orders with success. So have that dialogue, business dialogue by your business intelligence developers will establish number one, trust, help the business community to move forward, understand the data better, and creates a data driven culture from the bottoms up approach. So that is one success mantra that I did in the past organizations help creating a successful organizations and data driven culture.
Awesome. Yeah, I really like that. The trust element in the data world, it's very hard to gain, but so easily broken. Like if there's one incident where there's potentially a wrong KPI or duplicated within a different report. And earlier in our conversation, you talked a little bit about how you're using kind of logs to monitor the infrastructure and the reporting challenges on the BI side. And so at Datalogz, we call that kind of our BI Ops product where we're using that. But I'm curious, what were some of the things you were able to solve with that infrastructure team monitoring the BI logs and why other companies should follow that model?
So it's very important to have governance and controls, and we call it as ABCs, right? Audit, balance, and control, checks is very important in one eliminating the rationalization of BI assets, which is number one, the reports, data logs, the same ODBC or JDBC connections to the same database in 1,000 places. And then the other thing is creating the data views for specific to a particular report. I call it as a semantic layer, right? So have your business driven by these semantic layers, a standard approach, and no matter what tool on the downstream side you are using it, I don't care. As long as it is coming from a trusted data source that I built and a semantic layer that we built along with business stakeholders, and the consumption can be through anything. And these are the elements that are very important to audits and balance and checks and controls that I said, ABCs.
Right. Yeah, I think one thing we've been hearing a lot from the CDO and CIO community is there's a big push to move transformations out of the BI layer and into your warehouse where you're creating that semantics layer, that table view with the gold stamp that says, hey, this is how the KPI is calculated and a source of truth. So we're seeing that like the logic shouldn't live on the BI side where there's manipulation, more inputs, but moving it left to the warehouse. I'm curious if you've done similar kind of projects and things and your thoughts there.
That's a very powerful question, Logan, in terms of how do you architect the data infrastructure. When I say data infrastructure, source layer, your data warehouse layer, and then the consumption layer being the BI. This whole thing is part of the transformation. Even I'm just coming off of the one of the larger partnership with one of the bigger community organization off of the Gen AI strategies, is that including the Gen AI, the data extraction, keeping it at a place where it is consumable is most important, and that's the most challenging. And even in today's AI world, that's not solved. And the organizations continue to have those challenges, and each organization, based on their culture, people, process, and technology, they need to figure out how to solve those things, right? But whether it is a data mesh technology or lambda architecture or alpha architecture, whatever is that architecture, based on your organization needs and availability of people, process, and technology, you need to build accordingly. There is no one single mantra for that. But in my past organizations, I have done many, like I kept the semantic layer in data warehouse, I moved out of it, I created a logical layer of it, and we created in memory the semantic layer. So there is varied degrees of infrastructure data architecture that we build.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And you mentioned, let's get back to the AI. Let's ride the AI wave for a little bit. So, AI and BI, we know with Fabric, with Tableau's AI capabilities, how do you think that's going to change things? I mean, people, process, and tech, that's one thing. But with AI in the picture, how are organizations going to, I guess, not get to a point where they have these sprawling environments and complete lack of trust in the reports that are pushed out, or when issues arise, whether they are duplicate dashboards or stale dashboards, or someone's consuming something they shouldn't be. All of these issues that happen. How do you think this is going to be perpetuated with AI, if at all? Maybe you don't think that. That's what we think at Datalogz, but I want to hear that from you.
Um, AI definitely plays a role. Artificial
Mm-hmm.
intelligence as a technology framework definitely helps us in many areas. But people are, like, when I say people, means the consumers or the end users are using it for different purposes. When it comes to adopting to the business, and especially in the world of data, AI has challenges, right? And many believe that AI is a silver bullet. It is
Mm-hmm.
not. And people are, the outside world is saying that if you're not saying the word AI, you will be outdated. No, you
Yeah.
are not going to outdated, or your jobs are not replaced by AI. Only when you are not embracing the technology, you will be
Yeah.
replaced.
Yeah.
Similarly, internet, and we all adopted internet technology, and that's why
Yeah.
we are here today. So AI and BI, yes, the data engineering processes are acquiring some AI technology, and then the semantic layers, cataloging, and then data governance, AI is utilizing it. And the most importantly, Power BI and the tools like Tableau and other many other great tools are bringing generative aspect of it on top of data, and you can ask questions and they're producing great results. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, AI has a place in BI, good rhyming
Mm-hmm.
word there, but we have to use carefully. And one thing to
Yeah.
remember, Tina, is that garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. Yeah. And I think the problem is, or at least what we've seen with our customers, we have these large data mature organizations that we're working with. They have tens of thousands of reports. And so, like you said, garbage in, garbage out. But with AI in the picture, within these BI tools, it becomes easier to produce more garbage. Or, if there's something that already exists for your exact need, you just don't know where to find it, and you produce something else. So I guess, how can we implement these guardrails before we create a landfill of garbage reports?
Yeah, so the most important thing is always put the guardrails at that data source itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's the number one place, right? But with data coming from various places, including the social media and other places, there is a limited amount of
Mm-hmm.
control that we can have as long
Right.
as we implement certain things. Definitely, data warehouse is a place that we implement those data quality and other things, and having a element of data governance is also put those guardrails. And then when it comes to the BI, always the ad hoc reporting will make that pile of reports. And then
Mm-hmm.
some of the business users also think that, hey, I want my data in this tool, and we will go and buy that tool. And so
Mm-hmm.
you will have many reports, you will have many technologies. So I use the analogy, right? Your kid asks the for one Christmas the PlayStation, for other Christmas or other birthday they ask for Xbox, the other one they ask Nintendo. So you end up having many gaming stations at your home, and depending upon the game they use the right console. Similarly, it is unavoidable to use or to not having like just one single tool. You will end up having multiple tools, which is
Yeah.
okay, having 3 or 4 standard tools, and then above and beyond that have some kind of a governance on top of it, and monthly or 6 months or every year conduct that rationalization of reports, tools, catalogs, everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like the rationalization problem never ends at most companies
Never.
because there's always new things being purchased. That cleanup
Mm-hmm.
effort. It's like, I guess, if you have a house, you're not cleaning once a year and you're done. You clean hopefully on a daily or weekly basis.
It's a
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, objects tend to move from order to disorder. That is the flow of life always. So,
Absolutely.
and I think one of our kind of go-to stats or statistics, I can't remember where this came out, but it's something like 70% of companies have more than 5 BI tools. And I'm
McKinsey
curious,
posted something like this a few years
okay.
back. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm curious, Rama, from your side, what's the record for the most data consumption or BI platforms you've seen in an organization?
Luckily, I worked in organizations that have these guardrails put in place, and the budget constraints also put these things on guardrails. So at one point, I was working on 6 tools, but we
Okay.
consolidated it to 3 tools maximum.
Okay. Very nice. And I think
That's a
we're
lot.
almost out of time, but I'm curious, one final question. If you have just general advice for the chief data officer, the CIO community, as they build out their data strategy for 2024, what would be your kind of 2-3 sentence advice for the CIOs and CDOs out there that might listen to this?
I don't know if I can say it in 2 or 3 words, but
2 or 3 sentences.
yeah, 2 or 3 sentences. Let's see. Let's try that.
Okay.
The number one is AI is not the silver bullet, and always think garbage in, garbage out. Data engineering efforts takes time. Think of that, and build the BI community as an integral part of your business. That's very important, and let our the chief data officer or whoever is managing that create the team structure in such a way that they are able to run the business review meetings and make sure they understand the business, because the learning BI tools and other technology tools are black and white. The learning business, understanding the value, and value driven BI approach is very important, and that's my most important recommendations to all the C's out there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rama. This has been so informative. It's always nice to talk to seasoned data leaders like yourself. So this has been great. Any final words, Logan?
No, just Rama, thanks so much for coming on and chatting through this with us.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Tina,
Yeah.
and thank you, Logan, for having me.
Thank you, Rama. All right.
Thank you.
And
Bye-bye.
that's it. That's it for this episode.